is Nancy Goodman Lee. And when I was in the Peace Corps, I was Nancy Goodman. I was in Peru, and I was in from 1963 to 1965, starting February. Supposed to be urban community development. I ended up going up into the mountains near Huaraz, in an area, the Callejón de Huaylas, in a little town called Vicos. It wasn't even a town, it was a community, una comunidad. I just have to say that Peace Corps was the biggest thing in my life. I've had some phenomenal, wonderful things happen in my life, and by far the biggest was the Peace Corps. I'm assuming that's a pretty common thing that you hear from volunteers. But there's never been a day that somewhere in the back of what's going on, I'm not thankful for having been in the Peace Corps, how it changed me, and changed me in ways that were certainly much better than I could ever have hoped. One of the things that happened is just in Peace Corps training, even that early, we were trained in Puerto Rico for the physical training and emotional training. And somehow they stopped doing that not too long after we went through Puerto Rico. And I'm really sorry they did that, because for me, that was the most important part. That really allowed me to know that I could keep going, I could do things I never thought I could do, I could do things that were different. It made me a whole lot more flexible, and it showed me a different way of looking at things. I'm remembering one time I was teaching. I ended up teaching, which was something I had not trained for. But I taught little wonderful kids who had never seen pencils or paper, books. They spoke only Quechua. I was, of course, trying to teach them in a language that wasn't my first language, wasn't their first language. I was trying to teach them Spanish. And so one day they decided they were going to teach me something. And they took me up to, it turns out it was about 17,000 feet. And they were showing me a lagoon where you could actually see yourself like a mirror in the water, because around there, there just isn't water that you can see yourself. There's also snow. And so they wanted to show me snow. Well, I'm from Wisconsin, so I had seen snow a lot. But they didn't know that. So we went up to 17,000 feet, and they said, "Taste the snow, señorita, taste the snow." No, I've tasted snow. Taste the snow. I tasted the snow, and it was sweet. It was sweet snow. And I believed that it was because there the eggs were Easter egg colored. Everything was so beautiful where I was. The mountains were so gorgeous. They even had sweet snow. Of course, they had brought sugar along, and they were teasing me. But they were able to fool me. That's just one of my prized memories. So in the beginning, I was trained for urban community development, and we all ended up one day entering the barriada. In those days, a lot of people were coming from the mountains and setting up. They would just overnight invade an area.
Explain barriada.
Una barriada is like a barrio. Let me think, how can I say that? Frankly, a slum. And they were some barriadas that were new, and some that had been there quite a long time. And people would put up their little chozas, their little huts of straw that were woven mats. You could see through the walls. And little by little, they would build their brick by brick. They would build their little home. But we were there were 5 of us that were put in a barriada that was brand new. And so there were they gave us this little choza, this little hut of straw mat that you could, actually bamboo, I think, and you could see through the walls, and the kids would all be peering through the walls at us all the time. Not one moment of, well, we finally put up newspapers so that they couldn't see through all the time. And the day that we arrived, there happened to be some German photographers that were there, and they saw the commotion that we caused. Hordes of kids surrounded us, and we didn't know what to do, so we started playing with them, and we did rondas, like singing songs and dancing with them. And the German photographers started to take pictures of this. And so instead of doing, or maybe as well as doing, a story of the slums of Lima, they also decided to do a story on the Peace Corps coming in. And so they did. They followed us for a while and filmed us. And actually, mainly me, they had me going to get my water from the well. They had me doing all this stuff. And before they could send it back to Germany, they had to get it okayed through Washington. Washington liked the film and said, could they buy it? And they did. And they started using that film as a recruiting film. And my parents had not wanted me at all to go into the Peace Corps. Not my daughter. My daughter is not going to go into the Peace Corps. She's going to have this suburban life, and she's going to marry a nice Jewish doctor, and she's not going to live like that. And who knows what'll happen to her. Well, of course, when the film came out on television, which wasn't that old, I mean, television hadn't been around that long, they were very proud, and things were a lot better. It was very helpful for them to see that film. This also has a not great ending. I mean, that of course was wonderful, but the not great ending is, not long after that, the Peace Corps seemed to have lost the film. I asked them when I got back from the Peace Corps, back from Peru, I said, could I have the film? Could I buy that? And they, well, you don't know where it is. We just changed offices and we lost it. So that was the end of the film. But worse than that, later on, they never found me in their records. They claimed to have no record of me having been in the Peace Corps. So I just want this to be, I even have another result of that day when we came in. The German photographers somehow connected with some Peruvian photographers, and I was on the cover of Carretas, which is even now a magazine still in Peru, and it says here, this is so perfect for my parents, would you let your daughter live 2 years in a barriada? I mean, how perfect was that? So that is me, believe it or not.